Welcome back, you guys. I'm Kyle with Flippin' San Diego, and even though this isn't a traditional furniture flip, I've been inspired by learning during furniture to remove this ancient wall heater from Nutone. I could not find a single video on the internet, so if you have one of these, I hope and pray that this helps you, because I've learned a little bit through the last two that I've already removed and uninstalled from our other bedrooms and the living room. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how to do that today. First of all, the power is still running. That is bad. And this hasn't been used in so long, I can smell the burnt dust. So we're going to turn it off here, but we're also going to turn it off at the circuit breaker. So I'll be right back. And we're back. As you can see, power is off. I want to make sure that's off as well so it doesn't draw any more power. High moves. Just going to remove these two screws that are actually holding it into the wall. My little shot helper. So it's pretty simple. Once you take those screws out, it just falls down. You can see it's a wall unit. It has this metal box that keeps it from getting hot where it shouldn't get hot. You are in the shop, my dude. Once those screws are out, you're going to be looking at all of these wires. It looks like a hectic mess, but really you just have to worry about 3 of them. This is a neutral wire coming from the unit, not important. This is a wire that wasn't used as well. What you're looking for is the neutral that's connected to the wall. One thing you should actually do before you start touching all these wires is really test to see if they're hot. So this little thing was, I think, $8 at Home Depot. It will blink if it is hot. Nothing here is hot. We're good. So I'm gonna undo all of these wire nuts. I'm gonna peel this unit off of them. And lastly, the ground. So the ground is always green. It's a bare copper wire. Black should be your power. So that's what you can see here. The black should always be your main power source. And then white is usually neutral. The neutral should not be hot. So if it is hot, you got different issues. Someone rewired it bad. Second part of this is removing this box. So this box is actually screwed into the studs. There's a stud that goes on each side, so it's fully supported. Now what I'm going to do before I remove the box and the screws holding it in is, if you look up here, there's a little tiny nut. This little silver nut, I don't know if you can see that, there we go, is holding this kind of 1-inch conduit anchor, I guess you could say, into the box. So you just unscrew it. It's usually just hand tight. That pops off like this. Save that because you will need it later. Straighten these out. And we're going to remove, there are 4 screws holding it into the wall. Now these units do still work, so I have some other people in my neighborhood that have this similar setup, so I'm going to see if anybody has a broken one that they want to replace. So we can always repurpose it. Just going to peel this off the wall. Once you get those screws out, it should just simply pop off. There, that was a friction fit right there. That was nice. So this is it. That's the box. This is the unit. You can see here, they simply just cut out a square, shoved it into the drywall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a terminal box. You can buy these at Home Depot. I think it was $1.80. That's going to go right in there. First thing you want to do with your little terminal box here is to pop out these little, they have these little pop outs. They have them on the top, they have them on the side, they have them on the bottom, on the other side, so that no matter how you mount this box, you do have an access point for these wires to come through and then be tightened back up with the little ring nut you took out earlier. So I popped out the smallest one to test it out. I actually tested it on the other two. Turns out that is the perfect size. I'm just going to clean up the edge with a little razor knife to make sure it's nice and snug when I shove this nut in there. Simply thread the wires through that hole you just made. Take the ring nut, put it over all the wires. And we're going to tighten that up. First try, that's awesome. Once I have those in, I'm going to mount that box flush to the wall with just a couple of screws. The trick here is that in order to make sure when I put on this outlet cover that doesn't, it's just a flat blank face. I want to make sure that my box is flush with the drywall, because I am going to drywall this afterwards to eventually have just that faceplate showing, just like your outlet is over there. That's all I want at the end of the day. So I'm going to make this flush. I'm going to put it in the top corner so that when I cut my drywall, I only have one easy cut. If I put it down here, I have to make a U shape. Put it up here, I just cut a little 90-degree out of the corner. So that's going to save me a little bit of time in the end. So let me just go ahead and mount this. There's one. That's not going to go anywhere. It is in the stud. I'm going to cap these appropriately, but first thing you want to do is you actually want to get rid of some of this twisted wire here as needed. There we go. We're just going to give about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of wire exposed once I trim off all this stuff that's kind of been wiggled and damaged over the years. The ground doesn't really need it, but we're going to do it anyway for demonstrations purposes. Get that in there. All right. Now I'm going to throw on some new nuts. I don't think there's anything wrong with the old ones, but I think this will help. It makes me feel better. I'll sleep better at night. You can get a bag of these, kind of a combo pack. Ranges from anything from, I think this one goes from 20 gauge down to 12 gauge. So pretty much covers anything you should find in a common household, which is helpful. And it's only like $3 for a pack of 30 or so. So you're just going to go ahead and screw on these wire nuts, every single one, even the ground. And then for extra safety's sake, I'm going to go ahead and throw on some electrical tape. You just take a little electrical tape, wrap it around the nut, just like so, just to make sure that if anything were to happen, that's not going to pull off and expose a live wire. Because when I do close this all back up, I will turn the power back on, and these will be live, but they will be up to code and safely tucked in their little box. So when you are doing something like this, be sure to check, make sure whatever you're doing is not going to require an electrical permit or anything like that from the city. Something like this where you're just terminating one outlet in the wall, as long as you are not removing the entire thing and rerouting it, you don't need a permit for it. I did check. So the joys of owning a home and learning what's important. So as soon as these are wrapped securely, I'm going to tuck them right back in there in their new home. And then I'm actually going to test. I'm going to turn the power back on. I'm going to test to see how they go. Make sure that they are live and that everything is okay. So I'm going to go turn that back on at the breaker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. So that is the sound you should hear when it is live. So now I have this giant open space and I don't have anywhere to put the drywall. So I don't have anything to anchor it to. So earlier I cut out a little 2x4 from a scrap I had. I always like to keep my scraps around, especially for problems like this. I drilled some pocket holes in the bottom so that I could shove it in. So now that I went ahead and fixed that cut, it is perfect. So all I'm going to do now is use those little pocket holes to drill straight into the studs on either side. This will give me a nice firm platform to hang or mount my drywall. Odds are we're not hanging any large objects from this area, which is why I'm just using one support beam. I'm not going to be putting a TV on this wall, so not too worried about the drywall being supported in one spot. We'll go back, cut a hole, or cut the drywall to fit. So we're downstairs now because you have 3 of these heaters. So it's the same project, same exact sizing, just different location. So I cut the drywall that I picked up from Home Depot, 2 sides, cutting out a hole for the outlet. Put the outlet in the top corner because I made the cut the easiest. I only had to do 2 cuts. Pretty much you just cut it to size, make sure it fits. As long as you have less than like an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch gap, you can fill that in with the tape and the mud, which I'll show you how to do next. And we're back and in a new location. So now we're in the master bedroom where our 3rd heater was. Now you guys have seen each and every hole that I've cut. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap right here, which is not a huge issue. I will cover it with the joint compound. I'll smash it in there, and then I'll put a piece of tape over it, which I've pre-cut so that we can keep this nice and quick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start that. Now you can buy joint compound in these little tubs. Home Depot sells them. You can also get it in powder form, so you can actually thin it out if you need to. You can thin this stuff out if you don't like the consistency. This one's pretty good. I haven't had any issues with it today. Sometimes they come, they're a little chunky, but this one is perfect for the purpose. So you definitely want to put down some floor protection, especially if you have brand new carpet, because this can get messy. I'm gonna try and be as liberal as possible with this, because of course the goal is to even it out. And if you notice, there is a huge difference between the old stuff that I think they put on almost a 1/4 of an inch joint compound and what we're going to do. So the tape will actually help with some of that. So I'm gonna be nice and liberal on the front end using my 2-inch putty knife there, and then I'm gonna come back. You notice I'm not going all the way. I will clean that up. I'll put some joint compound here and then I'll paint it, but the outlet cover is gonna cover that, so I'm not too worried about that. So then you just hold your piece of tape, smash it in, come back the other way, same thing. And make sure there's a lot of tape or a lot of mud under there, because you don't want any air bubbles. If you have air bubbles, it's gonna come back, it's gonna affect your tape later, and you're gonna have to cut it open, get that air bubble out, and then reseal it. So just put in a lot at the beginning and you'll be totally fine. And then you just repeat that on every single corner and you're done. I'm just kidding, you're not done. So you'll actually have to do probably another coat after a light sanding. Then you'll notice there's texture on this wall. This is drywall, there's no texture here. So if you want to make sure that everything matches before you paint, you can buy spray can texture and just do each little space. That works really well for the small repairs like this. So do it to whatever you like, or however much time you have, or patience, and then just have fun with it, because at the end of the day, you can always paint it again. All right, so this is the final reveal. This is it. It's all done. The paint finally dried. The homemade texture worked out enough to give it a little bit of 3-dimensional look there to match some of this texturing. They were actually completely out of it in every home improvement store within a reasonable distance. So I decided to just do it on the fly. I can always come back, do it again, and repaint if I want to. But it goes behind this dresser, so I don't want to. That's it. Tell me what you guys think. Thanks, everybody.